Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me here today. My name is Marlaina Simmons, and I am the networks coordinator for Kitsap Strong. In addition to that, I did provide for part of the year in 2020, I was the Kitsap Census Coordinator. I took over for Leslie Doggs that had to step aside due to it. The timeline for the census was extended due to the pandemic. And so she had to step aside. I stepped in. And at that time, I actually already was with Kitsap Strong. I've been with Kitsap Strong since 2016. And prior to coming on board with Kitsap Strong, I managed our Regional Early Learning Coalition for 6 years. And actually, just within the last year, I've stepped back into a co-lead position with the Early Learning Coalition, which is now called the Peninsulas Early Childhood Coalition. And then as of last Monday, I was appointed to the Kitsap County Council for Human Rights. So that's my newest adventure in the community. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen, hopefully. It works okay. All right. All right. Is everybody seeing that okay? Great. Okay, so I'm also here with kids and dogs, and so if you hear noises in the background, I apologize. And now that I'm sharing my screen, I might not be able to see anyone that raises their hand, put anything in chat, anything like that. So feel free to just interrupt me and ask any questions that you have. If I don't have the answer to one of your questions, I'm happy to figure it out if it's something that's more relevant to one of our other backbone team members. So let's get started. So I wanted to take a moment and also introduce you to our backbone team. In addition to myself, there's Alyson Rotter, who is our Graduate Strong Network Manager, and Cristina Roark, who is the Innovation Network Manager. Cristina is the one in glasses. And you might, if you're familiar with Kitsap Strong at all, you might know notice there's a face missing, and that is Cody Russell. He was our Executive Director up until the end of November of last year, and he has recently transitioned into a new position. So it's down to the three of us holding up the backbone team. So what is Kitsap Strong? Kitsap Strong is a movement of more than 110 organizations that have come together to work on preventing childhood trauma and helping people, children, and adults who have experienced it. Through a collective effort called Kitsap Strong, these groups are working together to find creative ways to shift community dynamics in order to foster hope and self-healing. Kitsap Strong also works to share new brain science with our community. Over the past 6 years, we've shared this information with over 9,000 people directly, and we estimate that well over 400,000 others have interacted with organizations and community groups that are studying this science with Kitsap Strong and making changes to their services. Dozens of organizations have made dynamic changes to the way they interact with their clients because of new understanding of how trauma impacts the brain and what we need to feel safe, seen, heard, and connected. So this here is our graphic that we call the spaghetti bowl. It just kind of shows a little bit of our overall structure and all the networks that are a part of Kitsap Strong. So Kitsap Strong helps people prevent and overcome childhood trauma by creating school and life success through our Graduate Strong network, working with organizations to create a culture of empathy and connection through the Innovation Network, promoting nutrition and physical health through the HEAL network. HEAL stands for Healthy Eating, Active Living. Sharing new science about our brains and bodies through the Near Education Network, and supporting one another through the Thriving Neighborhoods Network. Collective impact is fundamentally about collaboration and doing together. By taking the time to learn together, we alter the way that we think and solve community challenges. The impact of Kitsap Strong network partners is felt through the changes that ripple through our community and our ecosystem as a result of collaborative work. The approach that we take to this work is first the KISS framework, and this is something that comes to us from our partners in Walla Walla, the Community Resilience Initiative. KISS stands for Knowledge, Insight, Strategies, and Structure. And Kitsap Strong's theory of change is that if we can change how organizations and people think, we can then change how they feel. Once we change how they feel, We can change how they do what they do. And this means better integrated systems and agencies using collective impact collaboration, an increase in trauma-informed care practices, agencies that are working to build and measure resiliency and hope, and systems transformed to inclusive cultural approaches and anti-isms, racism, sexism. And our overall outcome is to help all individuals in our community thrive. So I'm sure all of you have seen some form of this image at one point. There's been various images that have been created now, but I wanted to take a pause and just acknowledge that equity is at the core of our work. And I wanted to reflect on what the difference is between equality and equity. So equality is when everyone is given the same access to the same resources, but equity is achieved when everyone gets exactly what they need to succeed. At the inception of Kitsap Strong, when our previous executive director, Cody Russell, became hired, he was trained in the NEAR sciences and since became a master trainer. NEAR stands for neuroscience, epigenetics, adverse childhood experiences, and resilience. Once he was trained, his first mission with Kitsap Strong was to immerse and saturate our community in this science. And as I mentioned before, to date, we have educated close to 9,000 people on neurosciences. Why are we doing this? The CDC tells us that ACEs and their associated harms are preventable and that prevention begins with education. So why is education important and why childhood trauma? Childhood trauma is the root cause of the most serious problems that people in our area face. Everything from chronic health problems to high divorce rate, drug abuse, depression, and homelessness have been linked to childhood traumas. And the more trauma a person has, the higher his or her risk for major challenges in adulthood. In 2011, through the BRFIS data, we learned that 37% of Kitsap residents have 3 or more ACEs. I'm recently told that as of the 2019 data, which we're working to get our hands on right now, that number might have fallen down to around 30%. So this is one of the most powerful graphics that I think that we have that really reflects the importance of this. Through the prevention of ACEs in children and building resiliency with adults, we could eliminate 67% of suicide attempts, 78% of IV drug use, 61% of incarceration. This is huge. I'll just take a moment, allow you to look at this graphic and reflect on that for a second. The latest brain science offers hope for people who have experienced childhood trauma. It turns out that connection with other people, self-regulation techniques, and good food and exercise can counteract the damaging effects of childhood trauma, both in children and adults. Recent science has shown that making one important shift in the way we interact with people can be a huge difference with people who have suffered childhood trauma. The key is to put yourself in that person's shoes. We need to start asking, instead of what's wrong with you, asking what happened to you. This important paradigm shift can make a tremendous difference to a person who has suffered childhood trauma. So now I'm going to move into talking a little bit about our networks and how we're working on this. And so the first network is Graduate Strong, which is our Cradle to Career initiative focused on ensuring that all children and youth have the capabilities, connections, and credentials to flourish. Many of the experiences and learning opportunities that shape a child's life occur outside of the classroom and in our communities. Science tells us that children develop the capabilities they need to overcome challenges through connections with caring and competent adults. Graduate Strong is a community response designed to help students develop these capabilities, connections, and credentials they need to flourish. Graduate Strong is a network of organizations and individuals with a common agenda shared measurements using innovation and collaboration through several action-focused work groups. And this is the network that is run by Alyson Rotter. So one of these work groups is mentorship. And I know coming into this presentation, I was asked how this group might be able to get involved in the work of Kitsap Strong. And mentorship is one of those areas that you can get involved in. So the mentorship work group, the goals are to increase access to, the quality of, and evaluation of different mentoring programs within Kitsap County. Graduate Strong acts as the backbone and convener for local mentorship programs. So if you want to get involved in your community, mentorship is a great way to do that. And actually, if you go to the Graduate Strong website, you can find a list of all the different mentoring programs within our community. Another work group is around future-bound activities. Some of the work that they do are scholarship workshops, FAFSA and WAFSA navigators, and Welcome to the Real World. So if you've never heard of Welcome to the Real World, what that is an experience where students will be able to choose a career and it's associated with the annual income. They then walk through tables, which is the tables of life, where they choose some housing, whether that's buying a house and the related cost of that or rent. Then they can choose whether they're going to buy a brand new car and have a car payment or a used car. And so they can see that where that income will get them in the career choice that they are interested in. And of course, along the road of life, things happen, like their car breaks down and they have associated costs with that. So financial aid navigators. Why is this important and why is it something that Graduate Strong has taken on? Well, it's estimated that by 2030, 70% of family wage jobs will require some sort of credential. Now, when we talk credentials, we're talking something from a 2-year college, a 4-year college, an apprenticeship, a tech school. So we're talking about all of the opportunities out there for students. And an important first step for a student to get there is filing their financial aid application. Research shows that it's even more important in predicting post-secondary enrollment in middle and low income students. In Washington and in Kitsap County right now, only about half of graduating seniors file a financial aid application. So what if every student had a trusted adult that could navigate the anxieties students are facing about the future of their own career and college path? This was a program that was piloted with the Kitsap Regional Library Teen Services Librarians in the summer of 2019. Since then, Graduate Strong has offered 2 trainings a year in the fall and the spring, and to date have trained navigators with Kitsap Regional Library, Kitsap Immigrant Assistance Center, Olympic College, various high schools in our area, service clubs, and retirees. Another piece of work that Graduate Strong is instrumental in, alongside the Olympic Educational Service District in Bremerton, is our collaborative learning academies, our trauma-sensitive schools, our collaborative learning academies. This is a year-long journey where teams from local schools apply to be a part of a cohort. The idea is to provide new knowledge and reflection that leads to perspective shift and change in beliefs and mental models. Ultimately, this leads to changes in the educators' beliefs and practices. The ultimate goal is to equip the team with enough of those knowledge and skills that they can go back and lead and implement them within their school, ultimately having a greater organizational and system change. Through various grant supports, we've been able to convene 5 cohorts serving over 50 teams of our local schools. The limitations to serving more schools have been the stipulations related to free and reduced lunch rates or geography. In the fall of this year, for the first time, Kitsap Strong will be providing our own funds to support schools that previously have not qualified due to this free and reduced lunch rate. So I'm going to pause right here and just see if any questions have come up so far before I keep going. Robin, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. I was just curious. I noticed that you help students with financial aid. And oftentimes, as we know, especially when you get into higher education, financial aid actually just translates to debt. It's kind of another word for debt, actually. How do you help mitigate that so that the students don't end up so overburdened financially? Because that's also a real stopper when it comes to moving forward.
Right. Yeah. So another thing that Graduate Strong has done is they will hold scholarship workshops. And I'm not sure if you have ever heard of a platform called Washboard, but Washboard is, I think Alyson kind of refers to it like a dating site for scholarships. So you create you create your profile and your interests. You write your letters in there, your transcripts, all those kinds of things. And it will help match you to available scholarships that are available to students. And so and honestly, Kitsap Strong is housed under Kitsap Community Foundation. I was just talking to someone there, and there is so many scholarships that go unclaimed every year. So if you know any students that are heading off to any sort of college, just please make sure that they know about these scholarships, they know about Washboard, and Graduate Strong is definitely a good option to help someone navigate that process. And another thing that is being done through Olympic College is they're doing a free first year for any students that come from Bremerton High School. And I think the plan is ultimately that they would expand it beyond just Bremerton High School to all high schools within Kitsap County. So those are two great options to help mitigate that cost.
Yes, because it's a very economically and across the country, this is a really important issue, actually, in terms of our financial status for a lot of people. So just curious.
Yeah, definitely. And also part of that filing the financial aid is they'll find out if they qualify for any sort of grants. And so that can be helpful as well.
Yeah, grants versus loans, way different.
Exactly. Yep. 100%.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions before I move forward? Okay, let's keep going.
We have a question here in the
Oh, you do? Okay.
I'm sorry. Just to, it showed there that it was that program came out of the ESD. Is that correct?
The CLA.
Collaborative Learning Commitment.
Right. Yeah. Thank
So
you.
it's a collaboration between Kitsap Strong and the Olympic Educational Service District. So further in my slide, I'll talk a little bit about the Collaborative Learning Academy, starting with nonprofit organizations within our community. And then it was kind of replicated and the content was changed over to be relevant to schools. And so in that process, the ESD and Alyson Rotter from Kitsap Strong are the ones that come up with the content and actually are the ones that provide the content to the CLA. So it's a collaboration.
And then do the individual school districts, they must say they agree that this is good curriculum and therefore we want to participate? Is that
correct?
Okay.
So there's an application process, and I think our next one is going to be opening up in another couple of months. I'll have to ask Alyson that exact date, but there's an application, and part of the application is basically just saying that the school has to provide a team. And so we do that because we know there needs to be different layers of involvement in that. So we want someone at the admin level, teacher level, oftentimes school counselors will participate. And so they're signing on saying that they're going to come as a team and go through this year-long journey together. And as I had mentioned, so far, we've been able to support this through grant funding. So we actually pay schools to participate. We give them stipends so that they can use it for release time to pay for subs or maybe any materials that they want to purchase for their classrooms or school as a whole, regulation items. And so we pay for that through grant funding, but a lot of our grant funders want us to only be supporting low income populations. So schools that have a really high level of free and reduced lunch rates. But we know that that's not the only homes that trauma is impacting. Right. If you look at the original ACEs study that was done, it was done through Kaiser Permanente. It was done with middle class, mostly white individuals. And so you can see just from that alone that it's not just lower income populations that are being affected by ACEs. And so that's why this year we are actually taking some of our own money to support creating a CLA that we don't have to have that free and reduced lunch rate as an indicator for it.
And how many of those do you do in a year or in a school year? Is it just one?
Yeah, yes, because it runs for one full year. So just one.
Okay.
We have another question from Janice in the room.
How is Kitsap Strong funded?
So we have various sources of funding. When we initially started, we had received grant funding through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and that was building community philanthropy funding. And so Kitsap Community Foundation received that funding, and then them and the Suquamish Foundation and the United Way came together and provided matching funding, and that's how we all started. And then from there, we've also, right now, we currently have funding from Olympic College. We have some from the Balmer Group, which is actually who took Cody Russell from us, but at least they funded us first. And Kaiser, we have money from Kaiser, and I think that's all of our funders right now. So we have our primary funders that just put money in to support the overall work, and then we also get grant funding from different sources as well.
The primary funding is Gates, and
We actually no longer have the Gates funding. So we had that for several years, and that as of last year, I think we no longer have Gates funding.
so primary funding is United Way, or what? What is the primary?
The primary, well, it's kind of a mismatch. So the United Way puts in funding every single year, but then the actual funding comes from Suquamish Tribe, United Way, and then other grant sources.
Got it.
And Olympic College, sorry.
Do you have any relationship with the county government?
Yes, so in various forms. Gay Neal from the Kitsap County Human Services Department was always on our leadership committee. And then we have another person from the Human Services Department, Kristen Jewell, that participates on leadership as well. And then we try to engage our officials. Every year we do an elected officials event. And so we engage them that way. So there's people from various departments within Kitsap County. And then also later, I'll talk a little bit more about work we're doing with law enforcement and how we've been engaging some of the law enforcement professionals through that.
Wow. Okay.
It looks like someone had a question in the chat. Sorry.
It looks like someone might have had to leave, and just a thank you from Pat.
Says I have a question about how COVID will be included in the ACEs.
Good question.
I don't know if that's the
Panic.
Yeah,
okay.
that is a good question. So what we know is that the data that was initially collected through the ACEs study with Kaiser Permanente isn't all of the traumatic experiences that people face. So there definitely is more things that could be related to adverse childhood experiences that aren't reflected in that. And so I don't know if someday that will be a new questionnaire will come out, if they'll change the data at all. But for now, there's just those 10 ACEs that are collected in the data.
What's the Marlaina, it's Candy. What is the total staff number for Kitsap Strong? You've got the 3 overall leaders, coordinators.
Yes, so actual staff backbone team, there's just 3 of us, but we are a collective impact initiative. And so we work with over 100 organizations in Kitsap.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I'm going to keep going, and then I'm sure more questions will come up as we move along. Okay, so Handle with Care is another initiative that Alyson Rotter with Kitsap with Graduate Strong has been instrumental in bringing to Kitsap County. This is something that was initially came out of West Virginia. And it's something that seems so simple, but has such a huge impact. What it is that anytime a first responder or law enforcement a response to a call in a home where there's children present. And that can be anything from a medical emergency to a domestic violence situation. The law enforcement professional would then send an email to the school district that says just the child's name and handle with care. And the intent of this is that we're hoping that if a child has had a traumatic experience and they come into school the next day and they haven't slept, they're falling asleep on their desk, not participating, before they might have been met with a punitive experience, getting in trouble, getting sent to the principal's office. But the hope is that instead they're met with compassion. So maybe the teacher would come to them and say, hey, you're looking a little tired. Do you want to go in and rest in the nurse's office or something like that? Just recognizing what had potentially happened in that child's life and supporting them through that. So right now we have 4 of our local 6 school districts that are implementing Handle with Care, and we are working to roll this out countywide. So our next network is the Innovation Network, and this is the network that is primarily run by Cristina Roark. And the goal of this network is to create brave spaces for leaders of organization to incorporate the science of trauma and resilience into their work and evaluate their services through the perspective of the clients they serve. We hope to inspire organizations to build a culture of empathy, equity, and connection for clients and staff, resulting in better outcomes and effective services. We work to accomplish this through funding learning and innovation and following the energy of our community. So as I mentioned, we provide the Trauma Sensitive Schools Collaborative Learning Academy, but the model actually began with nonprofit organizations within our community. And so we also provide funding to these organizations because we know there's a lot of these organizations that are a fee-for-service type of staff. So we want to be able to provide them with funding so they can come and participate in this without losing funding for their time not seeing clients. So in this Collaborative Learning Academy, they spend a year in their teams taking a deeper dive into the neurosciences. In the first picture that you see, it's CLA participants engaging in a catalyst conversation that later led to an innovation award project that Kitsap Strong provided funding to support. The next image shows the staff of the Dispute Resolution Center and Kitsap PCAP, which is Parent Child Assistant Program, at their kickoff session for their new collaboration, bringing mediation and restorative practices to mothers in recovering from substance abuse disorder. So now what? After guiding partners through and their organizations through the CLA and immersing them in the neurosciences, they became hungry to put the science into action and begin implementing trauma-informed practices into their work. In June of 2019, Kitsap Strong brought in Tim Grove with what was then St. A and now WellPoint to train 23 people from our community in their trauma-informed care curriculum. We then began our journey to walk alongside these trainers and their organizations to become trauma-informed. Our next step in becoming a trauma-informed community was to engage with law enforcement officers. Kitsap Strong partnered with the Welcome Home Project through the Port Gamble Slalom Tribe to break the 8-hour St. A curriculum down into 30-minute videos. These 30-minute videos allow the law enforcement officers to easily digest and consume the content at their own pace. This project is currently being piloted with law enforcement officers in Kitsap County.
We have a question in the room.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I work for Kitsap Public Health District, and I was wondering, have you guys ever reached out to them? Because they have nurses who, I can't think of the title of their group right now, but they go into like low-income houses and help mothers and children.
Yeah, their home visiting programs, probably like nurse family partnerships. So actually, prior to COVID, we were in Kitsap Public Health District. They used to provide space to us. They actually were one of our funders and have been present and a huge partner in this work. Actually, I guess I should go back a little bit, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a little bit so maybe I can see people. So Kitsap Strong actually came out of the Kitsap Public Health Priorities. It was identified that adverse childhood experiences were one of our top health priorities in Kitsap County. And so that's how we started. And so Kitsap Public Health has actually been instrumental in that from day one. And so we've had a really great partnership with them. And like I said, we were actually housed in Kitsap Public Health up until the pandemic hit. And since then have been working from home. So we definitely engage with them a lot. And I engage with Nancy Acosta, which is one of the lead nurse home visitors through my early learning work as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions?
It's amazing.
Oh, and this is another way that we actually engage with Kitsap Public Health District through the Healthy Eating and Active Living Coalition. So this is a partnership. It's run through WSU Extension and Kitsap Public Health District. And in this coalition, the goals is to increase equitable access to healthy foods and opportunities for active living, as well as cultivate a community that prioritizes healthy eating and active living. So some of the projects that this coalition is currently working on is a corner store initiative, which I don't know if any of you are familiar with the term food desert, but basically what that means is that in a specific area, there isn't a grocery store within a certain mile radius that provides options for non-packaged food items. And so they piloted a project with a corner store in one of these food deserts in Bremerton that actually provided some fresh fruit and vegetables, healthier options right there, right front and center when you walked into that corner store. They also have an early learning work group where they're working with early learning providers in Kitsap County to increase their healthy food options and physical activity in their day. And then also a movement campaign that is currently in the planning phase and will launch in May of this year. And so the whole entire intent of that is just to get Kitsap residents outdoors and moving. And so keep an eye out for more information on that. And our final network is the Thriving Neighborhoods Network. So we strive to improve on how we listen to each voice within our community and create pathways for those voices to have influence on community resources. We believe that every member of our community can be a leader, so Kitsap Strong works to bring near sciences to as many people as possible and empower them to take hope-filled actions in their lives. Our Thriving Neighborhoods Network is still in its infancy. We are actively working to gather natural leaders to develop community goals and take collective actions. Neighbors need to be able to identify issues that they want to tackle and receive support as they move forward. We're very excited to be on the brink of this, putting community-based and community-driven programs into action. So one of our partners I'd like to spotlight is Calvary Chapel of Silverdale, which actually has shifted and is now City Chapel of Bremerton. And they have an initiative called Love the Neighborhood. And it's where they have partnered with the Knollwood neighborhood in Bremerton, which is a housing Kitsap neighborhood. And they've really come in and just walked alongside this neighborhood and provided everything from an after-school homework club to providing rides to the grocery store, because this neighborhood is very isolated and on the very end of a bus route, to also every year they provide a back-to-school barbecue where they provide much needed back-to-school supplies for the residents of that community.
What's the name of the neighborhood, Marlaina?
Knollwood. So it's sort of up past where Auto Center Way is.
Where is it?
No.
So I just wanted to leave with one final note, and that is, even though I'm here today on behalf of Kitsap Strong as a backbone team member, this is community work. And so we are all part of that. So I wanted to thank each and every one of you for helping to make Kitsap Strong. The info at kitsapstrong.org is a good email address if you come up with any questions after the fact, if you want to reach out and talk a little bit more about how you can get involved in Kitsap Strong, anything like that, feel free to reach out anytime.